Of course.
First question, what is the depth of the sampling and how they are appropriate based on exposure, vertical profile? And it may not be that clear for the presentation. The sample results that the Department of Health that we use for determining immediate human health concerns are 0 to 6 inches. But in addition, actually that was one of our modifications to the sampling plan presented by the city. We sample from 0 to 24 inches, so we have full to 24 inches of sample results too, and they were also consistent. So that ensures that we have a better understanding, because I completely agree with you. That's why I wouldn't approve the sampling plan just looking at the 0 to 6. The focus is 0 to 6 because you can understand we're trying to address your human health concern. Where the dust is going to come from. That's the main vector that does, that direct exposure from your kids to that soil, is the 0 to 6 inches. And something that I would not want to do, if I collect samples 0 to 24 inches the old times, you dilute the samples in some instances. The 0 to 6 inches is the right thing. So we do it both ways. Actually, your second question from groundwater, and you're going to be very happy to hear that Miami County this day we have criteria that we look at the total concentrations and we have criteria for potential leachability. So we do evaluate. Soil concentrations are evaluated from 2 fundamental pathways, human health exposure and leachability potential. So, of course, at the training facility we had the advantage of the groundwater monitoring wells, all of them were clean. We sampled for 150 chemicals at every single well, and we do not have any issue. At Branch Park, we are going to have monitoring wells installed to answer that question because of the vertical profile to do that. In addition to that, of course, we look at the homes to see if they are provided potable water by public or city water. So, of those of you who live in this area, by a show of hands, how many of you get a water bill? Thank you. So if you get a water bill, you're not using your groundwater for drinking water. So you're not exposed even in the event you don't have it, but even in that event. Any of you have a private well, don't pay a water bill, you have a private well that you use for drinking water. Any of you residents of this area. Thank you. So that's what we do. We actually look at the water main lines. We have a database that we actually understand which ones do not have the water bill, therefore a potential private well. So actually we did that work with some meter. A few years ago we built the private wells. We sent notifications to homeowners that had private well or have to ensure that they were informed about that. And I know you may have additional questions, but I do want to make an effort with all of you. I want to make sure that I give opportunities, that we give opportunities to all of our friends, neighbors, for everybody to ask a question. And then we can go back to the first person. I just want unlimited number of questions, if that's okay with my coordinator. Thank you.
Yes, I have a question. My name is William Zumbrister, and it baffles me that we're having this presentation, but on your slide, it indicated that some of the results were pending. Now, in Coconut Grove, we've had since 1924, of course, Mr. Williams, we spoke before, and humidity is heavy here in South Florida. So the little picturesque you had with the smoke just going way up in the air, that does not apply here in Coconut Grove. My concern in Coconut Grove is the two parts that have been impacted due to pollution. Why aren't they both closed until all of the results come in and they can be deemed appropriate to utilize by some authority other than Dade County and the City of Miami? Because Dade County and the City of Miami have a vested interest in the results coming out in favor of them and not us. So when you get all the results and not the results pending, we have all the results so you can say without a shadow of a doubt, it's safe for our children to play on these parks. Then reopen the parks, but until you get all the results, these parks need to be closed.
Thank you. Thank you. As I said before, we use very specific key chemical indicators. Actually, when you look at Blanche Park data, you have sample results for an impacted park with actual deposits in that park. And the dioxins are rather low, and the key indicator continues to be the lead. The Northwest 20th Street and the Zero Corrugables for incinerator, we have looked at lead, barium, and other key indicators compared to dioxin. On the other hand, we are upfront with the data as we have it. What are we spending, we tell you. Whatever results we do have, we tell you. And what is the professional evaluation, we do share with you. When the data indicates the need to take actions, we have taken. And actually, sir, for your information, we have closed. I have personally made that decision for one of our own county parks. When the data makes that decision, we make the call and we take the necessary action. I assure you. Furthermore, not only you're talking to Miami-Dade County Health and Department of Health, they work with Tallahassee, the two toxicologists look at the data. In addition, they work with ADSDR and they work with CDC with the program that they have to look at those disease issues. And actually, precisely because of concerns like yourself, and I fully respect that, we made sure that we invested the effort that we did not have sample results from a single consultant. You have sample results collected by Durham staff, personally, run by Durham Lab, information shared with our partners, with the Department of Health, to provide you the most complete evaluation we can. And we continue to move very systematic, very thorough, and I can tell you, look at all the studies done by all the other counties, and look at the number of samples that they collect, and you're going to see the difference. But I do respect your concerns, and my job is to work even harder to ensure that your concern is addressed to the best of my ability. Thank you, sir.
Will you email the finalized?
Of course.
Email that to me because this isn't doing me any good right now or anyone else. If we got results in the pending, I'm still trying to figure out why we need.
Understood, and as I said, we communicate as fast as we can with the data that we have. We will come back with additional data if it's warranted, so we will share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're very welcome.
Hi, good evening. Question is regarding close by and how it's affected also the elementary schools and middle schools immediately in the area, Carver Elementary, Carver Middle, and Tucker Elementary. It was great to see the graph up there that provided us with the specifics on Blanche Park and what the results were for the findings. However, it would be extremely helpful for us to have total clarity on the effects and the results on all of the neighborhood parks, and particularly those that are immediately near schools, and how that affects the health and well-being of the kids.
Thank you. That we shared before, you can see the individual parks that were sampled and the schools that were sampled, and that was his reference that some of them were pending. Now, for this park, there were 2 sample collections at the same park, which is the one that is very close to it. For those, we have actually the dioxin results, we have the lead results, and we have the barium results. The Arbor Spring Park, the Barnyard, Peacock, Harbor, Coral Gables, Tucker, and in addition to that, we have 8 parks sampled by Miami-Dade County Durham, and all of those results were also provided in the presentation. Those results you will be able to access the actual individual lab report, so you can have it for you. But these parks were sampled in addition to 8 parks that we sampled ourselves.
It would be helpful to have that information in the same format where you show Blanche Park with the graph chart, where we can see side-by-side comparisons for how these parks compare.
All this data are statistically the same population, and they were compared. When I said common growth area 1 includes all these data points in the comparison that we did.
No, I understand that, but we don't have a side-by-side. I understand you saying we're looking at it on an aggregate, and they were included in the aggregate. It would be helpful to see how these compare individual parks by park overall.
It can be done.
Would that information be available on your website?
You're going to have the individual lab reports, you're going to have this presentation. Now, remember, when we look at the cases, the comparison was with the health opinion is basically maximum concentration. The background comparison was done to understand the distributions. But the health consultation, actually they're very conservative. They don't use the distribution, they use the maximum concentration. So their opinion is that the arsenic that is the only one that is above the screening criteria, the levels are well below any level that I would expect to cause any illness.
Here's a concern for the average parent. The average parent wants to know, my child may have lived here for 15 years, my child may have been playing maybe for 3 years, whether it's 3 years or 25 years. There may be a minimum exposure based on some of these levels, but a child who has been exposed to it over a prolonged period of time, the expectation is that that child, the exposure that that child has received, will have a different impact on that child's health than maybe a child who may have visited the park a couple of times. So we want to be able to have a full clarity and be able to put it all in perspective.
Thank you. Good question, because it definitely needs to clarify. So, the Department of Health, we evaluate, they use the maximum concentration. The comparison were to illustrate the findings, were they related to atmospheric deposition, or they were consistent with what you will find if you move to a different location outside this area. To your specific questions, the duration of the exposure, the frequency. Actually, we don't assume that this exposure is for 1 year, 2 years. We actually assume that the kid will live in the same home. He will grow up as an adult and will stay in the same home for tens of years. So he considers the exposure as a kid and exposed to adult. These are very conservative criteria that is developed, considering all those elements. He considers ingestion, he considers dermal, he considers inhalation, he considers the areas that the skin is not protected, etc. So it's a very, obviously, I don't have the time to go through the equations and all the frequency factors that are used. But if your concern is that the evaluation only considers a short-term exposure, that is not correct. What I will do is because obviously we can use more time, if you give me your business card, I will be more than happy to sit down with you to go over how the evaluation is done. I would be more than happy to do that. Something you would like to add?
Yes, I think you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Samir Hira, the Director of Environmental Health with the Miami-Dade County Health Department. I think, Wilbur, you did a great job answering these questions, but I can add that for instance, the exposure period for arsenic is we estimated for basically 30 years, and the exposure for lead, because it mostly impacted children, we basically have intervals of time between 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, up to 7 years. And that's why we do toxicologists. In fact, we have 2 toxicologists on staff working on this analysis and this stuff. So I'm here to answer any related question associated with the information that presented by my colleague, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Senator.
Hi, thank you for having this. My name is Mark Allen. I have a daughter that's been going to Ranch Park for 8 months. She is a year and a half old. So I have a personal concern, and I'm also here representing the Homeowners Association that has 15 children in Virrick Park. I have a couple of follow-up questions, if you don't mind. The most important one to me is if the levels, and everything I'm speaking to right now is Ranch Park. If the levels at Ranch Park were high enough to warrant the removal of the dirt and gravel and sealing and asphalt, what about this data not warrant closing the park until we finalize the tests?
Yes, and we spoke about that issue during the Monday evening meeting. The first effort, as you know, and as I explained, we take immediate action based on data that we have. We take immediate actions based on data that we have. Here's what we're doing. In 2 weeks, it's a very short time, as you know. You're very familiar with this process. We have spoken before. 2 weeks is a very short time. We're collecting soil samples at a specific location based on the invaluable feedback that we obtained during the meeting, so we hit those specific locations. We already, just to share with you, we're already starting to get results, because one of the fundamental questions that we needed to understand is, we do have artificial turf. And this is an important question for the citizens. One of our priorities is open ground. Some of the questions from the previous speakers is that they're very concerned with open ground. We are actually fortunate that at Blanche Park, although it may not be necessarily the final design for the final solution, we do have a physical barrier that is minimizing or eliminating to a certain percent the dust formation. So the information that we needed to know is, we know that there was a layer placed underneath that astroturf. Correct. I needed to know the thickness of it. I needed to know the analytical results of those layers. Then I needed to know, Samir and I actually learned, we need to know what are the concentrations underneath that. We hear you, and that's why I can tell you our lab is working extraordinarily.
We appreciate it.
No,
I understand that you don't know yet.
We don't know, and just one. In order to, because as you know, I have little citizens that love that park, as you know, and they are concerned that they will not have access to it. So I'm just trying to have that appropriate balance, that I have the right information. The situation would be very much different if this was an open ground park, I can tell you that. So let me start with that. If I have results at the parking lot, and I don't have some results from the inside, and it's open ground, I'm really concerned. Let me share with you. As you recall, Monday night, I did not have that information, but I share with you. We collected the Friday before the meeting, one day after Thursday day, we collected samples. If you remember the playground, go to the center location, you move due north to those apartments, and remember that open area that is there?
Like 24-foot sand area.
Gonna cover. We collected 0 to 6 inches and 6 to 12 inches. They came clean. I did not have that information to share with you on that. I wish I did. Remember, move east between the dog park portion and the kid park portion, and that open area there. We collected 0 to 6 and 6 to 12 inches. Both of them came clean. So the information that I had at that moment to remove the benefit of a park to the citizens was the information that I'm sharing with you. And I shared this actually with the commissioner in a meeting that we had as a follow-up. And I said, I want to have answers to citizens. And sometimes I ask for a couple of days to allow me the opportunity to put all the information together. Even today was tight for us. And I want to say thank you to Lorna, Didier. We were typing even when we came here, but presentation.
And we're big.
No, I know you do. I know you do. You have expressed it, and it's very well. Here's what we're planning to do. We're getting results as we speak. Before I came, I got an email. I did not even have time to read it. They printed for me. That's going to be my reading material going home. And as soon as we put that cross-section profile that I mentioned to you, we're going to have a profile. West to East, a big. Okay. And once we have those results, and we know the actual layer underneath the artificial turf and the contaminated soil, we will be able to make that call very quickly. For example, already we know that just the difference in the elevation makes a difference. As you know the part better than me. So we're putting that together. I say 2 weeks. My goal is to, before the 2 weeks, we're going to coordinate with the city management officials, with your elected officials. We'll have a specific meeting, and if before that we're ready to make the call, we will call the meeting and inform you of that decision.
Thank you. And my last question is, on the last meeting, and you just reiterated it now, it was stated that when that park was built, not for this reason, but I'm guessing for structural reasons, topsoil was removed, a layer of sand was laid down, and some kind of antiseptic, something sprayed on top, and then the asphalt on top of that. Does anybody know where that topsoil was thrown away to?
If you recall, during the evening meeting we had that conversation, and I believe city management staff were emailing to find that information. I don't have it.
So somebody's on it.
Yes, city management was looking for that.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Hi, my name is John Lamella. I represent Virrick Grove Dog Park. I run a dog walking business. This is also for my clients. Because it's a park, we know it's astroturf, but there are open areas which were being tested today. Do we have something to worry about with the dogs that also go back with families? They could be, I don't know if there's any side effects, if you know of any side effects that we have to be worried about, concerned health-wise for the dogs because of shots.
Thank you. And I believe the commission answered the questions about some of the side effects. Here's what we're going to do. And I will not repeat the answer to my previous speaker, but you know that some of those answers are related to you. And we are collecting open grounds. It's something that we know is a priority. Number two, the elevations actually within the dog park, as you know, in some areas are higher. So we will have that cross-section. And again, my answer is going to be, once we have the vertical profile, one advantage that we have, and this is relevant even to our dear citizens from the Coconut Grove, something that perhaps I didn't emphasize enough. When you don't, from all the samples that we have received, which is a lot, when you don't have the associated solid waste, the results are coming clean. We have samples slightly above where the solid waste is, and they're coming clean. So the visual information is very powerful information. And that's what I wanted to share with all of you, how the material looks. The melted glass is a good visual indicator. And please call us. Because I have one parent at Blanche Park that says, I saw that. And I said, please call me next time. That same day, call your City of Miami Park manager. Please understand, we have chemicals and we will evaluate exposure over time. Remember, when you look at solid waste, we have physical hazard. A kid can be cut by some of these materials. In the report, we see glass shards in ES report. Well, guess what? If I see that, that's going to be my priority before investigating the chemicals. So, to all the parents, when you go to your park, if you see solid waste, call the park manager, call your city official, get something done. I come later, but that's first. So, we'll give you the answers, and I assure you, whatever it takes from our end, from with my personal commitment, we will be with you ASAP. Thank you.
Okay, and my last question is, if it does come up that the park is toxic, where do we go from there? Do we go up, branch out further into the community, like block by block?
We already did it. We're stepping out in certain specific directions, collecting soil bodies to determine the extent of the solid waste. We're already doing that actually in one particular direction. Once we have a vertical profile, a CAP, corrective action plan, will be designed for that. And that's part of an ongoing effort. It's part of evaluating properties. Typically, these properties are those that, remember before regulation, before DERM, EPA, before permitting, people extracted the limestone, and what you end up is with a gravity. And guess what they did in the 1940s and the 1950s? Solid waste was brought in, and it was filled. So it is a significant issue that needs to be addressed. It has to be systematic, and we're working on that. So yes, we are extending.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, sir.
Hello, my name is Andre Thompson. I'm in that 30 group that you talk about. I grew up here in Copeland Road. As a matter of fact, my grandmother's house is right across the street from the barnyard. Now, I've had relatives who passed away with cancer. I grew up there on that corner, Washington and Booker. Went to college, elementary and junior high. Went to Gables. Gables had windows, but we didn't have smoke coming in. You know, we're lucky when we're in Gables. My thing is, the things that we were exposed to back then, and there's a lot of people in this neighborhood, and I see some out here. You know, what about our health? I mean, what about my relatives who passed on? I mean, could they have been exposed to some of this stuff that was out there?
Thank you. That's a very good question. Unfortunately, we don't have the environmental data or exposure data for these years that you're talking about. However, if there is a cancer cluster or cancer cases in your community, there is a mandatory reporting to the Florida Department of Health. They keep a registry of cancer cases, and if they see any cluster within a specific area that is unusual to the norm of the population, they have a team of epidemiologists, chronic disease epidemiologists. They can come and investigate. So if you have an unusual type of cancer for a specific area in your community, regardless of what we are investigating today, I would urge you to please call our number, 305-324-2400, and we will report it and we'll follow it up.
Well, let me ask you this. Is there some way for the people who have been exposed in this community, in this community, to be tested? Commissioner, maybe the city wants to sponsor something like that?
So far, we have sponsored